of us do. About 90% of the population takes caffeine in one form or another. Most of us, it gives us a little pep, it gives us a little boost, it makes us feel better. But on the other hand, if you take too much of it, you probably get so-called coffee nerves. You get jittery and kind of shaky all over. It can give you an upset stomach and acid indigestion if you have too much of it. And, frankly, if you continue to drink coffee when your stomach's upset and you're jittery, you're probably abusing it the way drug abuse is defined. And believe it or not, there are 2 or 3 people a year who die of caffeine overdoses. So, yeah, marijuana's a drug, but to say it's a drug is not to say it's bad. If we take many of the other drugs of abuse, if we look at the opioids, which would include Oxycontin, Vicodin, Percocet, codeine, morphine, as well as heroin. These are all marvelous painkillers, and they're prescribed by doctors on a daily occurrence. Chances are if you go to a dentist and have work done on your teeth, you'll get a Vicodin pill or 2 to help with the pain. And it's very useful for that. But it also can be abused if it's used in the wrong way at the wrong time. So we apparently have another caller. Hello? Hello, caller. You're on the air.
What do we do? Does drugs mess up the liver?
Okay. Do you have any other questions or that you want to ask while I'm talking to you?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Do drugs mess up the liver? Yeah, I was talking to a doctor in New York a week or so ago who talked about buying drugs in pharmacies in Canada, and that he, for years, had been buying Vicodin, which is an opiate with Tylenol added to it. And he said, but the last time he went into a pharmacy in Canada and bought some of it, the pharmacist said, sir, I've got to give you a warning about this. It's a dangerous drug. It contains Tylenol, and that can damage your liver. Now, many drugs, in fact, most drugs, have side effects, or things that we don't really want them to do, and sometimes those side effects can be dangerous. For instance, alcohol, which is a very commonly used recreational drug. You didn't know beer was a drug either, probably, but it is. Alcohol can cause severe liver damage in people who drink a lot of it. Tylenol, as I mentioned, is notorious for causing liver damage. And all sorts of other drugs. If you take certain vitamins, for instance, you'll be warned to stay out of the sun because it makes you ultra-sensitive to sunburn. Many drugs have different kinds of side effects, and we have to watch out for those, whether we're using them under a doctor's supervision or whether they're drugs like coffee, caffeine, that we use on our own initiative. And remarkably, of all of the drugs out there, one of them that has the fewest side effects and the least harmful side effects is marijuana. A federal judge who examined the case of medical marijuana, an administrative law judge working for the Drug Enforcement Administration, in one of his opinions said, marijuana is among the safest therapeutic agents known to man. Well, we're about to the time when we need to take our first break, And as a slightly lighter side to the program, our first break tonight's going to take us to look at what Houston Normal did in this year's Art Car Parade. Well, we're back, and we have with us John, a representative of Houston Normal, and part of the motive power behind the art car this year. Yes, how are you tonight, John?
I'm doing great. It was a wonderful experience. We finally decided to bite the bullet and really try to do a really good one this year, without something just jerry-rigged together and covered with rust and all that. And we rented a van. We had Robert, I don't know his last name, who's a local artist. We need to give him a plug. I'll probably ask you to plug his company. But he basically airbrushed and painted with water-based paint a rented van. And we decorated it. We just had this idea. He had this concept of, cannabis to the rescue of an ambulance, and it's just the idea of we really almost should have this. Although it should probably be better handled by just individuals doing that. If you needed a government program, you would probably need some guy out dispensing this, or central or.
Well, I know it struck me that the Cannabis to the Rescue ambulance was a great idea.
Yeah.
It really hit home.
And it looked good. I mean, it was just, we wanted to, for so many years we've been arguing about whether this is right. And I says, and the point that we were trying to conceive of, you shouldn't argue when there is no argument. There's been too many scientific studies. I mean, you go back all the way back to the British hemp study. You go back to the Army studies and
the Surgeon General in 1930.
Oh yeah, the LaGuardia report. There was a report from the Army Medical Corps in Panama. It's there. The debate is bogus. There is no debate. It has been proven. And it's obvious, something that makes you feel good, something that millions of people will risk prison for because it makes them feel good, would make a person who is sick, who by definition feels bad, feel better. And I understand, okay, cops need to make a living too, and if it gets right down to it, and you're angry